The Idries Shah Foundation podcast. Practical psychology for today. Featuring the works of Idries Shah, narrated by David Ault. Welcome to the Idries Shah Foundation podcast. This is the first in our series of selections made by the members of our Facebook group. These two stories come from the exploits of the Incomparable Mulla Nasrudin, and the first story is entitled His Excellency. By a series of misunderstandings and coincidences, Nasrudin found himself one day in the audience hall of the Emperor of Persia. The Shah was surrounded by self-seeking nobles, governors of provinces, courtiers and connivers of all kinds. Each was pressing his own claim to be appointed head of the embassy which was soon to set out for India. The emperor's patience was at an end, and he raised his head from the importunate mass, mentally invoking the aid of heaven in his problem as to whom to choose. His eyes lighted upon Mulla Nasrudin. "This is to be the ambassador," he announced. "So now leave me in peace." Nasrudin was given rich clothes, and an enormous chest of rubies, diamonds, emeralds, and priceless works of art was entrusted to him, the gift of the Shah to the great Mogul. The courtiers, however, were not finished. United for once by this affront to their claims, they decided to encompass the downfall of the mullah. First, they broke into his quarters and stole the jewels, which they divided among themselves, replacing them with earth to make up the weight. Then they called upon Nasrudin, determined to ruin his embassy, to get him into trouble, and in the process to discredit their master as well. "Congratulations, great Nasrudin," they said. "What the Fountain of Wisdom, Peacock of the World, has ordered must be the essence of all wisdom. We therefore hail you. But there are just a couple of points upon which we may be able to advise you, accustomed as we are to the behavior of diplomatic emissaries." "I should be obliged if you would tell me," said Nasrudin. "Very well," said the chief of the intriguers. "The first thing is that you must be humble. In order to show how modest you are, therefore, you should not show any sign of importance. When you reach India, you will enter as many mosques as you can and make collections for yourself. The second thing is that you must observe court etiquette in the country to which you are accredited. This will mean that you will refer to the Great Mogul as the Full Moon." "But is that not a title of the Persian emperor?" "Not in India." So Nasrudin set out. The Persian emperor told him as they took leave, "Be careful, Nasrudin. Adhere to etiquette, for the Mogul is a mighty emperor, and we must impress him while not affronting him in any way." "I am well prepared, Majesty," said Nasrudin. As soon as he entered the territory of India, Nasrudin went into a mosque and mounted the pulpit. "O people," he cried, "see in me the representative of the shadow of Allah upon earth, the axis of the globe. Bring out your money, for I am making a collection." This he repeated in every mosque he could find, all the way from Baluchistan to Imperial Delhi. He collected a great deal of money. "Do with it," the councillors had said, "what you will, for it is the product of intuitive growth and bestowal, and as such its use will create its own demand." All that they wanted to happen was for the mullah to be exposed to ridicule for collecting money in this shameless manner. "The holy must live from their holiness," roared Nasrudin at mosque after mosque. "I give no account, nor do I expect any. To you, money is something to be hoarded after being sought. You can exchange it for material things. To me, it is part of a mechanism. I am the representative of a natural force of intuitive growth, bestowal, and disbursement." Now, as we all know, good often proceeds from apparent evil, and the reverse. Those who thought that Nasrudin was lining his own pockets did not contribute, For some reason their affairs did not prosper. Those who were considered credulous and gave their money became in a mysterious way enriched. But to return to our story. Sitting on the peacock throne, the emperor at Delhi studied the reports which couriers were daily bringing him, describing the progress of the Persian ambassador. At first he could make no sense out of them. Then he called his council together. "Gentlemen," he said, "this Nasrudin must indeed be a saint or a divinely guided one. Who ever heard of anyone else violating the principle that one does not seek money without a plausible reason, lest a wrong interpretation be placed upon one's motives?" "May your shadow never grow less," they replied. "O infinite extension of all wisdom, we agree. If there are men like this in Persia, we must beware, for their moral ascendancy over our materialistic outlook is plain." Then a runner arrived from Persia with a secret letter in which the Mughal spies at the imperial court reported, "Mulla Nasrudin is a man of no consequence in Persia. He was chosen absolutely at random to be ambassador. We cannot fathom the reason for the Shah-in-Shah not being more selective." The Mughal called his council together. "Incomparable birds of paradise," he told them, "a thought has manifested itself to me. The Persian emperor has chosen a man at random to represent his whole nation. This may mean that he is so confident of the consistent quality of his people that, for him, anyone at all is qualified to undertake the delicate task of ambassador to the sublime court of Delhi. This indicates the degree of perfection attained, the amazingly infallible intuitive powers cultivated among them. We must reconsider our desire to invade Persia, for such a people could easily engulf our arms. Their society is organized on a different basis from our own." "You are right, superlative warrior on the frontiers," cried the Indian nobles. At length Nasrudin arrived in Delhi. He was riding his old donkey and was followed by his escort, weighed down by the sacks of money which he had collected in the mosques. The treasure chest was mounted on an elephant, such was its size and weight. Nasrudin was met by the master of ceremonies at the gate of Delhi. The emperor was seated with his nobles in an immense courtyard, the reception hall of the ambassadors. This had been so arranged that the entrance was low. As a consequence, ambassadors were always obliged to dismount from their horses and enter the supreme presence on foot, giving the impression of supplicants. Only an equal could ride into the presence of an emperor. No ambassador had ever arrived astride a donkey, and thus there was nothing to stop Nasrudin trotting straight through the door and up to the imperial dais. The Indian king and his courtiers exchanged meaningful glances at this act. Nasrudin blithely dismounted, addressed the king as the full moon, and called for his treasure chest to be brought. When it was opened and the earth revealed, there was a moment of consternation. "I had better say nothing," thought Nasrudin, "for there is nothing to say which could mitigate this." So he remained silent. The Mughal whispered to his vizier, "What does this mean? Is this an insult to the highest eminence?" Incapable of believing this, the vizier thought furiously. Then he provided the interpretation. "It is a symbolic act, Presence," he murmured. "The ambassador means that he acknowledges you as the master of the earth. Did he not call you the full moon?" The Mughal relaxed. "We are content with the offering of the Persian Shah-in-Shah, for we have no need of wealth, and we appreciate the metaphysical subtlety of the message." "I have been told to say," said Nasrudin, remembering the essential gift-offering phrase given him by the intriguers in Persia, "that this is all we have for your majesty." "That means that Persia will not yield one further ounce of her soil to us," whispered the interpreter of omens to the king. "Tell your master that we understand," smiled the Mogul. "But there is one other point. If I am the full moon, what is the Persian emperor?" "He is the new moon," said Nasrudin automatically. "The full moon is more mature and gives more light than the new moon, which is its junior," whispered the court astrologer to the Mogul. "We are content," said the delighted Indian. "You may return to Persia and tell the new moon that the full moon salutes him." The Persian spies at the court of Delhi immediately sent a complete account of this interchange to the Shah. They added that it was known that the Mughal emperor had been impressed and feared to plan war against the Persians because of the activities of Nasrudin. When the mullah returned home, the Shah received him in full audience. "I am more than pleased, friend Nasrudin," he said, "at the results of your unorthodox methods. Our country is saved, and this means there will be no attempt at accounting for the jewels or the collecting in mosques. You are henceforth to be known by the special title of Safir, emissary."
"But, your Majesty," hissed his vizier, "this man is guilty of high treason, if not more. We have perfect evidence that he applied one of your titles to the Emperor of India, thus changing his allegiance and bringing one of your magnificent attributes into disrepute."
"Yes," thundered the Shah, "the sages have said wisely that to every perfection there is an imperfection. Nasrudin, why did you call me the new moon?"
"I don't know about protocol," said Nasrudin, "but I do know that the full moon is about to wane, and the new moon is still growing, with its greatest glories ahead of it." The emperor's mood changed.
"Seize Anwar the Grand Vizier," he roared. "Mullah, I offer you the position of Grand Vizier."
"What?" said Nasrudin. "Could I accept after seeing with my own eyes what happened to my predecessor?" "And what happened to the jewels and treasures which the evil courtiers had usurped from the treasure chest? That is another story. As the incomparable Nasrudin said, only children and the stupid seek cause and effect in the same story." The second story is entitled First Things First. To the Sufi, perhaps the greatest absurdity in life is the way in which people strive for things, such as knowledge, without the basic equipment for acquiring them. They have assumed that all they need is 2 eyes, a nose, and a mouth, as Nasrudin says. In Sufism, a person cannot learn until he is in a state in which he can perceive what he is learning and what it means. Nasrudin went one day to a well in order to teach this point to a disciple who wanted to know the truth. With him he took the disciple and a pitcher. The mullah drew a bucket of water and poured it into his pitcher. Then he drew another and poured it in. As he was pouring in the third, the disciple could not contain himself any longer. "Mullah, the water is running out. There is no bottom in that pitcher." Nasrudin looked at him indignantly. "I am trying to fill the pitcher. In order to see when it is full, my eyes are fixed upon the neck, not the bottom. When I see the water rise to the neck, the pitcher will be full. What has the bottom got to do with it? When I am interested in the bottom of the pitcher, then only will I look at it." This is why Sufis do not speak about profound things to people who are not prepared to cultivate the power of learning, something which can only be taught by a teacher to someone who is sufficiently enlightened to say, "Teach me how to learn." There is a Sufi saying, "Ignorance is pride, and pride is ignorance." The man who says, "I don't have to be taught how to learn," is proud and ignorant. Nasrudin was illustrating in this story the identity of these 2 states, which ordinary humankind considers to be 2 different things. In accordance with the technique known as opprobrium, Nasrudin was acting the part of the ignorant man in his pitcher charade.
This is a familiar part of Sufi technique. His disciple pondered this lesson, linking it with other absurd actions of the mullah. A week later, he went to Nasrudin and said, "Teach me about the picture. I am now ready to learn." This audio is made available by the Idries Shah Foundation and is copyright 2019. All rights reserved.